I've not had a chance to talk about it yet on my channel, but I really love Steven Universe. Late Show Steven is so me to an almost shocking degree, except he's a lot more social than I am. I haven't really dived into the fandom for Steven Universe or many analysis videos on it, but there's one video by Lily Orchard that I really disagree with. Now I want to start off by saying I quite enjoy her content, and for the most part her view in general is not one that I really get to see in people that I listen to, so it's nice to have a different perspective on things. But the video in question that I disagree with is the one where she details her thoughts on the Bismuth episode in season 3. In that she criticizes Stevens and therefore the show's stance on violence and killing your enemies, basically accusing the show of promoting non-violence at all costs, even when your enemies are space Nazis. And it's not her take on Homeworld essentially being Nazis that I'd have an issue with, it's her interpretation of what the show's saying about violence and technically killing someone. First of all, they're not saying that violence is bad. Violence is everywhere in the show. Throughout, our prospective character Steven is gung-ho about fighting bad guys and figuring out what his gem powers can allow him to do. He's enthusiastic to see the breaking point, the new weapon that Bismuth created, and will not hesitate to fight off someone attacking him. Hell, he's not afraid of instigating the fight, and I can kind of see where one might get the idea that the show's trying to preach non-violence, because the way Steven does it, he does recognize that there are times to fight, but then there's also times to talk. He'd rather try diplomacy first and then fighting only if that doesn't work. And the key point about this is getting physical is not off the table. They're not even saying that it's morally wrong in the first place. What they are saying is not assessing the situation and choosing to punch it out first, ask questions later is really problematic. And sure, there will be a lot of times where talking won't solve your problems. We see that very well underlined in Steven's attempts to talk to Jasper. And then there's the other thing about not wanting to kill your enemies. Lily Orchard assessed the situation as the show having written itself into a corner because it's trying to preach a message of not killing people no matter how bad, even though the show's villains are nearly irredeemable, Yellow Diamond especially. And so it calls into question, if you're not going to shatter them, what are you going to do with them? Are you just going to talk to them? I mean, after a lot of persuasion and a few altercations, Paradox did come around to the Crystal Gem side, but as she rightfully points out, Yellow Diamond is very unlikely to follow that trajectory. But the thing is, the show didn't write itself into a hole. There's an inbuilt way out. Instead of shattering a gem, you can just poof them and bubble them. It's not quite as permanent as shattering, but it effectively is. As long as you store the bubbled gem in a safe place, like the temple, then there's no worrying about them escaping, being able to influence gems who might be sympathetic to them. Hell, you don't even have to worry about feeding and clothing them. They're effectively dead. Steven and Rose view shattering a gem as barbaric and morally wrong because you literally don't have to go that far. There's another solution that opens up the possibility of reformation, but if need be, can basically be like shattering. And it's not some deus ex machina that was introduced afterward, kind of like being able to steal someone's bending in Avatar. It's something the show has always had. When Bismuth talks about ending the war, that would have involved using the breaking point on not just the diamonds or other gems high up on the social ladder in Homeworld. They would have had to use that on Homeworld soldiers, rubies, quartzes, gems just like Bismuth. And here's where I can especially see Steven's logic. If you were to shatter them, are you really freeing them from Homeworld's tyranny? But I guess all this to say, Steven Universe is not anti-violence. It's anti-senseless violence, including choosing a permanent and devastating solution when another just as effective option exists. And again, I feel the need to point out that I'm not calling out Lily Orchard as a bad person or saying that her content sucks. I just disagreed with her on these points. Please don't use this as an excuse to pester her or be an overall jerk. Steven would not approve. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.